Welcome to the weekly poll, your number one source for comic book discussions. I'm Benny from Comic Storian. That's your cue. See,
okay. What's going on? What's going on, guys? This is Rob. I'm from Marvel Explained.
And this is David. I don't have a channel, but I should.
No, you don't need a channel.
All right. So the whole basis of this podcast is to have a mishmash of Marvel, DC, because Benny's a DC guy, I'm a Marvel guy, and Dave is in between. He likes both. So we figured we'd mix this up, and we'd bring like topics on DC. We figured we would bring topics on DC and Marvel and talk about both of them, like films and all different kinds of stuff, and like current events and comics. So we're going to start this first half with DC Comics, and we're going to talk about the whole Forever Evil storyline, which I know nothing about, but Benny does. So on matters of DC, I defer to Benny.
It's a little... All right. Let's start this from the beginning, and I'm going to make this really quick, because if you really want to know the entirety of the story, you just need to go to my channel to watch the videos. But the whole entire Forever Evil event starts with the New 52 Flashpoint relaunching event. What happened is, in Flashpoint, Flash went back in time, trying to save his mother from being killed, which is like one of the bases of the Flash character, and he changed all of the timelines and made this really crazy time where basically Bruce had died, Thomas became Batman, the Amazonians and the Atlanteans were at war, Superman had never been found, he was underground being held by the army. Crazy world known as Flashpoint. Well, when the Flash went back in time to fix all of these issues, what he did was he corrected it. But at that point, we had a character known as Pandora who showed up and said that she's going to merge all of the DC timelines, which, you know, basically was like they basically implied Vertigo and the John Constantine stuff and Wildcats and all that stuff. All that stuff got merged into one big timeline. They kind of showed everything around there. And they made the New 52 timeline. And the basis of this timeline is everything has happened in the last 5 years, and stuff like the Justice League haven't met, and Batman's events have all kept going. It was really confusing. But what it boils down to is we had an entire relaunch of the entirety of the universe. Okay? All the key events that they wanted to keep in continuity stayed there, but for the most part, all the junk events, they were thrown out the window. Move forward a little bit to the meeting of the Justice League. When the Justice League met, they were brought together to fight against Darkseid. Darkseid, I don't know how much of DC you know, but Darkseid is one of the big villains, and he has these things called boom tubes that allow him to connect various planets to each other for instant travel. That's how he always invades Earth and how the Justice League always has to stop him. Well, the Justice League started messing with the boom tubes to stop Darkseid. By messing with the boom tubes, they somehow linked into the multiverse. And the multiverse allowed them to bring in the Outsider and Atomica from Earth 3. The Outsider is the Alfred Pennyworth version of Earth 3. So basically like an evil Alfred. So while this was going on, you had Atomica and Alfred basically trying to set up the return of their Justice League, the crime syndicate. So then we moved to the event of the Trinity War. This was all of the stuff that they've been setting up for the last 2 years of the New 52 that basically lead into the Trinity War. Things open up with Superman basically getting sick, and we don't know why he's sick, but he's like horribly sick, and everybody wants to blame everybody for it. So we have the Justice League versus Justice League of America versus Justice League Dark. They're all fighting, and what they all think the reason behind this is Pandora. Pandora, the girl who started the entirety of the New 52, has Pandora's box, and the thought process is that because Pandora tried to have Superman open Pandora's box, that's why he's sick. So everybody's fighting for Pandora's box. Every time you touch Pandora's box, your greatest evils come out and you become like the evil version of yourself. So we start getting an evil Wonder Woman, an evil Shazam. Everybody starts going crazy. The original sins are coming out and starting to mess with everyone. See, it's kind of funny because they call them the original sins in like really early in the plot line, and then we have the Marvel event. But we're going to talk about that in a minute. So basically, everyone's fighting over Pandora's box. Now, this is one of the complaints I have about it and what happened. It's all being put off as a supernatural event. Pandora's box is supernatural. Well, what happens is eventually everyone's fighting over it. The whole box explodes. Everyone's being decimated. I think everyone's just going crazy. And the Outsider and Atomica show up and they open Pandora's box. And they explain that Pandora's box is actually from Earth 3. And it is used as a boom tube portal to Earth 3. And the only people who can open Pandora's box are people from Earth 3. That's why they can just touch it. By touching it, basically, you take on like potential parts of the personality of the people from Earth 3. That's why everyone was turning evil. So they open up the boom tube. Earth 3's Justice League comes through. And that leads us to Forever Evil. Forever Evil is the crime syndicate has now come from Earth 3 onto our planet. And the first thing they do is because basically Superman's already out of the picture because he's still sick. We find out the reason why he's sick is because Atomica put a sliver of kryptonite in his brain. She can shrink down to like microscopic size, went into his head and put kryptonite in there. That's why he's sick. So Superman is already out of the picture. The crime syndicate arrives with like a big explosion, knocking out everybody basically. And then the first thing they do is they basically open up Firestorm's matrix. Now, Firestorm is a superhero who has the Firestorm matrix, which allows him to manipulate any sort of element and basically go down to a molecular level and change things. So Deathstorm, the evil version of him, goes in and opens that up and sucks everybody into it. So we lose all the Justice Leagues.
Damn.
The only people who got away were Batman and Catwoman at the last second.
Wow.
So now we have no Justice League. No one knows where they are. Justice League of America, Justice League Dark, everybody is locked up inside of Firestorm. And the crime syndicate get free reign over the entirety of the of Earth Prime. And the only surviving hero is Batman, basically. So Batman goes and he tries to repair Cyborg because, long story short, when the crime syndicate came through, Cyborg's cybernetic body separated from his real body and became its own separate entity and joined the crime syndicate. So you have like the bits and pieces of Cyborg like injured and whatever. Batman brings his body, he starts to get him repaired, and they start trying to figure out what's going on. Well, Batman has no answer for any of this stuff. So our events of Forever Evil then shift to Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor sees all the heroes gone, and he realizes that if the crime syndicate rules Earth Prime, it's very bad for him because he wants to be the guy in charge, right? So he starts assembling the Injustice League, which is basically turns out in the end to be Lex Luthor, Black Manta, Black Adam. Basically Black Manta is Aquaman's biggest nemesis. Black Adam is Shazam's biggest nemesis. Captain Cold is the leader of the Rogues Gallery for Flash. He assembles all of these guys into one group. I think there's one more. He has a fifth. Oh, Bizarro. Yeah, the best one out of the entire group. Bizarro. And they make the Injustice League to try and fight against the crime syndicate. They eventually team up with Batman and Catwoman. Now you have Batman, Catwoman, Lex Luthor, Black Adam, Black Manta, Bizarro, and Captain Cold, and they go to town fighting against the crime syndicate. Cyborg gets repaired, and eventually the entirety of the end of the event turns out the Injustice League has to stop the crime syndicate because Batman's entire focus is freeing the Justice League. He has to get them out of the Firestorm Matrix because they're basically like in a mental prison inside of the Firestorm Matrix. And eventually what's going to happen is Firestorm's just going to erupt and kill everybody inside of the Matrix. So Batman's whole purpose is to get them out. So the entire Forever Evil event is the villains stepping up to take out the super villains.
Yeah.
And it leads to a whole bunch of a series of events. And basically at the end of the whole thing, most of the crime syndicate is dead. We have Owlman who's left. He's the evil version of Batman. We have Ultraman, the evil version of Superman. And we have Superwoman, which is the evil version of Wonder Woman to an extent, but it's actually Lois Lane. She's kind of weird, stands on her own. I don't know how that one plays out. And we also find out that Alexander Luthor, which was almost a nod way back to the Infinite Crisis 1980s series, Alexander Luthor's still alive too, and he is the evil version of Shazam, which is weird because they say his name backwards. I always mess this up. I know I did in the video too. It's Muzz. You gotta say Shazam backwards. That's what he shouts. You know, you go Shazam and
yeah. I don't know what makes people come up with stuff like that. Like that was one of the things that was always weird to me. Like people come up with weird names. Okay, but all right. So here's my question. So is it no longer just like Captain Marvel? Is he just like Shazam now? Is that all they go by? Because I know there was like a great big legal battle about Superman and Captain Marvel and all that kind of stuff. But
well, the whole Shazam thing is a legal battle in itself, and eventually Marvel picked it up. And I think they were still implying, because they call him the Marvel family, and basically it's Billy Batson is Shazam, and then there's the Marvel family. Yeah. Because then you can get his cousins and friends, and they all can become part of Captain Marvel, and it's a whole thing. They don't really refer to him too much as Captain Marvel, but the whole thing is Shazam is technically just the magic word that activates everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. He just shouts Shazam and then turns into Captain Marvel.
The comic is named
Shazam. Right. Yeah. Because that's technically, and that's the magic word that activates Captain Marvel and Black Adam. So they both use the same word.
Huh. All right, so give me the rundown on Superman these days, because I'm out of touch with like DC comics and stuff. So the last thing I'd ever really read, because I never really even gotten like the Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline. So,
well, you see, you can forget all about that. That's the beauty of the New 52.
So none of that stuff matters anymore.
All you need to know about right now, Infinite Crisis never happened. Most of the plots never happened. None of that existed.
Wow.
All you need to know about now is what I just told you to understand DC. because
Wow.
DC rebooted, and this is the conclusion of those 3 years. We've now ended what we've been building up for this whole time.
So I could
Now,
start.
personally, I think 3 years of build up for that. I don't know if that was worth 3 years of build up. It was a good event. I don't know if that was worth 3 years of build up.
Yeah, but like I could sit down and start reading DC now, and I wouldn't have
Yeah,
to do like
yeah.
it, like I just have a basic understanding of characters and could just pick it up now and just start reading for the next 10 years, and I'd be fine.
Yeah,
Assuming
farthest
they
any
don't
book has
change
gone now
anything.
is I think today is the issues 31 or 32 in most of the series. Those are the longest running books in the new universe. You don't
Okay.
need to know anything before that. That's how come on my channel, everyone's like, give me the plot of Final Crisis. And I'm like, okay, but the first thing I'm going to do is give all the events for the new 52.
Yeah.
Because if you watch all of these videos, you know what's going on with the new 52. You can move forward. Because until they reboot us back into the original timeline, this is all that matters.
Okay. Awesome.
The only timelines that stuck around, and it's confusing, is the Green Lantern timeline and the Batman timeline. And basically what they did is everything that happened to Batman over the course of, what, like 80 years or something like that, or 75 years, whatever that anniversary was, is now been condensed into a 5-year time span, which completely confuses the hell out of all of us DC fans, because that means that he somehow had 4 Robins in 5 years, and he's technically only like 30-something, and all these Robins are like 18, which means that he worked with them when he was like 12, and it makes no sense, and we've all just kind of said, okay, we're going to pretend that works. We're going to pretend it's okay.
Just accept it. Just accept it as true. I mean, that's
We
just the way
have
it
to
is.
accept it. And DC has said nothing on how this functions or what exactly happens with this. And the same thing with the Green Lantern events. Green Lantern, and that actually is one of my like big pet peeves right now. Green Lantern did so well with the Blackest Night that they launched a dozen different Green Lantern books. You know, we now have Green Lantern Corps, which were the 2 original books, but we also now have New Guardians. We have the Red Lanterns. We've launched Larfreeze. They're going to launch. They did launch Sinestro, and we have a new couple more Green Lanterns coming out of this. And I actually spoke with the writer for Green Lantern Corps at one of the Comic Cons I went to, and he said DC doesn't come to us. They let us do whatever we want. We're our own separate entity, and you can get that feeling in Forever Evil. Every book got wrapped into Forever Evil except the Green Lantern books.
Huh.
They were completely separate. Now, Green Lantern's in the Forever Evil event, but if you're reading Green Lantern, he's fighting off his own thing in his own universe, and they never seem to incorporate it into anything. And that is the other timeline that has been unchanged. The Blackest Night and all those other events have still happened.
Okay, but surely the Blackest Night events weren't just like confined to the Green Lantern himself, even if it was on the planet
They
Earth.
haven't revealed how that works.
See, that's the problem that I have with stuff like that. Like, they'll have a great big huge event that'll affect nobody except for like one person, and yet somehow no one else is affected by the event. It's simply just that one person, but then everything else is affected as well.
Crossed every book. It was on everything. Everybody turned into a Black Lantern, and that was the big battle when it actually happened.
Yeah.
Now, if you go through Green Lantern, they refer back to that event still happening.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what doesn't make any
But
sense.
it's only condensed in 5 years, and no one else seems to be aware that they were all controlled by zombie black rings at one point.
That's what I don't get. If they come out with the Forever Evil storyline and they say that everything that you've ever read about all these superheroes has only taken place in the span of 5 years, as opposed to however many years it's been going on for, then, you know, if the whole Green Lantern history has been going on for however long Green Lantern's been around, then like how do you justify that? So that's one of the things that I hate about that kind of thing. Crossovers are cool, and I love crossover events because you get to see superheroes and villains fighting each other, fighting side by side. That's why the Civil War was so cool. But the problem is they end up going back and retconning half the stuff. So half the continuity has changed, the other half of the continuity is not changed, and so you have characters who have technically been around much longer than other characters. They have backstories that go on long, you know, before other characters, and yet somehow they're still kind of around the same. It's weird and it's convoluted.
If you want to know the biggest convolutedness that came out of this whole New 52 reboot, and I mean, we probably should go back to Forever Evil because the New 52 reboot was 3 years ago at this point. But the biggest thing that came out of that New 52 reboot is Batman is still like 30, 35. You know, he's still kind of Batman. Green Lantern is still 30, 35. But Superman, who was in that same age bracket as them, has been rebooted to like early to mid-20s.
Really?
So he's younger now. He's more brash. He's emotional. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's trying to get a handle on things. I actually like this telling of him better, but it doesn't go in line anymore. You know, like Batman and him were they were the leaders of the Justice League, the older guys, the guys that knew what was going on. Now it's just Batman. Because Green Lantern never knows what's going on. He always goes by the seat of his pants, so forget him.
See, like, that's interesting to me because Superman always came across like, yeah, you know, I'm Kryptonian, and just by the very nature that I'm Kryptonian, I'm just wiser than everybody. Because unless you consider, like, Superboy to be like an early version of Superman, I guess, I don't know much about DC or whatnot, then you would kind of have to assume
long story short about Superboy is a clone, which is a merge between Superman and Lex Luthor in the New 52.
See, I don't.
And he's less Superman, more psychic powers.
Okay. See, I don't know anything about DC. Okay.
And they completely destroyed his storyline. I can rant about that one for days. He's the most. It's they re-killed him. They re-killed him in the New 52.
Speechless.
They've done two big killings in the New 52 since we started. They killed Damian Wayne, the current Robin, and they killed Superboy.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the most uneventful, just happened by the seat of your pants. You didn't see it coming. You're just, oh, Superboy died. Well, all right then.
Wow.
Like every other like Wolverine, we know about 6 months in advance, you know? And then to top it all off, the Superboy story, like at least Damian Wayne, he died and every book reflected it. If you had been reading into it, you kind of would have seen it coming. But the Superboy, he died in the middle of a Superman crossover event and his book kept going. And then in Teen Titans, he was still Superboy. But in his book, he was another clone from the future coming back in time to kill everybody.
Wow.
But in the Teen Titans, it's still the one we know. He doesn't die. But in the crossover event, he's dead. It's like...
Okay, well, all right. See, that brings up something interesting because I've been thinking about that. So to switch over to Marvel for a second, we were talking about the Original Sin storyline that's out right now.
Yeah.
All right, and we're in issue number 2, I think, as far as I know. Yeah, issue number 2 is the most current one.
Yep. We've only got 2 issues, and well, unless I don't know what comes out today, but as of Tuesday yesterday, there's 2 issues and 1 tie-in.
Yes. So, all right, here's my thought. Here's what I'm hoping for, because they revealed Orb to be like the guy behind it. He's the guy holding the eye of the Watcher. All right, and I felt really let down because it's like this big reveal. You know, he pulls the mask off his face, and I kind of assumed it was the Orb because it's a mask with one hole in the face. So I was like, okay, you know, so who else is it gonna be? You know, so
I thought he had 2 orbs, 2 holes in his face.
Just had one.
Was it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I was reading to the comic earlier today, and I'm pretty sure he had a mask. He had a hood over his head with one hole, like right in the center of the hood.
I might not have caught. I knew nothing about the Orb until he was announced in the Original Sin event, and I had to look him up.
Well, it wasn't until you spoiled it for me when you said like, "Oh, it's the Orb." Oops.
Well, I didn't know you hadn't read it yet. Like,
yeah, I wasn't caught up on number 2, but so here's what I'm hoping. All right, so they're talking about Original Sin, and so obviously it has religious connotation because they keep throwing out like religious scripture in the beginning of the comics, like Romans or something like that. I don't know, but what I'm really hoping, and this is, I'm crossing my fingers, I doubt it'll happen, but what I'm really hoping is we'll see the return of Adam Warlock, and then we'll see the return of the Magus, and then we'll see the return of the Universal Church of Truth, which would be really, really exciting, because the Magus was a really cool character, and as long as Adam Warlock is alive, the Magus will be alive, because the Magus is just an evil version of Adam Warlock.
I don't know either one of those guys.
Okay. Adam Warlock is an old school character. Adam Warlock. This is why I hope Adam Warlock will come back, because Adam Warlock is more or less in Marvel kind of considered to be like there's a train coming by my house. Adam Warlock is considered to be like an allegory for like Jesus in Marvel Comics, more or less. But he only pops up in like the most dire of circumstances. So he popped up during the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, rallied everybody together, and said, okay, we have to find some way to fight Thanos. So he was really kind of like, leading all the troops. So you had like pretty much all the Earthbound superheroes, some superheroes beyond the planet Earth that were trying to stop Thanos. And then once they failed, and the Silver Surfer failed to capture the Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos, and you had like the cosmic entities showing up. So that's when he brought in like Galactus and Eternity and like all those individuals jumping into the fray. But the Magus is a future evil version of him. I think it was actually during the Warlock comics. There's a point where he travels into the future to destroy the Magus in order to keep himself from becoming the Magus, something along those lines. But in any event, the Magus led an organization called the Universal Church of Truth. And the Universal Church of Truth was effectively an organization led by the Magus where they converted anyone who either believed in them and would follow them, or they executed anybody who didn't. So it was like the multi-billion person church, kind of organization. It was composed of thousands of planets and star systems. It was really kind of crazy. Like it was interesting, but I'm hoping that they bring this concept back and that we learn that Magus is the one behind all of this. Because to my knowledge, Adam Warlock isn't gone forever. He hasn't been killed. Because the Magus returned even after he had supposedly been destroyed by Adam Warlock. And Adam Warlock has returned on several occasions. So I'm hoping that he's simply just kind of hiding in the Soul Gem, although the gems may have been destroyed. But I'm hoping he's just kind of lying around somewhere.
Well, they were. I mean, that's what the tie-in for Captain America. They continue to state they have been destroyed, and that's what the tie-in for Captain America states. And they had to wipe his memory out and everything.
I thought they I know that after the event of the Infinity Gauntlet, Adam Warlock started the Infinity Watch. So he gave an Infinity Gem to 6 particular people. Like he held one, he held the Soul Gem, and then different people got different gems. Like Drax the Destroyer got a gem, Thanos got a gem, and their job was to just simply guard the gems so they could never be brought together again and used the way that Thanos used them. But I'm not aware that they like physically destroyed them. But even if that was the case, you know, I still think it presents a chance for Adam Warlock to come back.
I think they overpowered or like overcharged or something. Because they are destroyed right now. Because I just started reading through the Infinity books because I got through the entire Forever Evil thing, and I'm trying to do the Infinity storyline to get everyone current up to date on Marvel on my channel. And I'm reading through the books right now, and the Infinity the start they kind of talk about how they've been broken, but going through Original Sin also the Avengers tie-in. I think it's Avengers 25.
Okay.
The Original Sin tie-in that where Captain America gets his memory back of the entire Stones incident. They remember that they were I think one's remaining. I believe they're all broken right now, except for one.
Okay.
Because basically what they reveal in that tie-in is the fact that the reason they wiped out Captain America's memory is because he took all of the gems into himself and was like becoming all powerful and threw out his moral compass. And that's why they had to wipe his memory. He was the one that wanted to use the Infinity Gems for his own personal gain. Instead of what we all assumed was the Illuminati wanted to do it. The way the whole book is set up, where basically Captain America shows up and he's like, "Oh, Tony, you wiped memory out. What were you guys doing? Who in the Illuminati lost their moral compass? Who decided to use these Infinity Gems or the one remaining one or something like that?" Because they show them all breaking and then him holding one.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I believe there's one left. And then Tony Stark turns to him and he's like, "It was you, Steve. You lost your moral compass. That's why we had to wipe your memory out."
But see, I thought they reconstituted all of them. Like, I thought they were all brought back.
That I don't know.
See,
I don't know if they have been or not.
I thought they had taken the Infinity Gems, they had destroyed them, and then after the House of M storyline, when all of reality was brought back by the Scarlet Witch, I thought those were the things that came along with them. Because if you remember, after the House of M, like there were characters who had previously been dead that came back, like Hawkeye came back. So I thought that all that stuff had been reinstated, and the Infinity Gems were back again. I could be entirely wrong.
I'm looking it up real quick right here.
Okay.
By the way, for anybody who's joining us in this podcast right now or wants to know, we do have a topic list, and basically today we're discussing Forever Evil and the fact that it ended and the current states of the Original Sin topic.
Yes.
Those are our core topics today. And at the end of this whole thing, we plan on, because we both give you history on characters, we're going to explain who the heck the Orb is. Because I don't know about you, Rob, but I had to research the Orb. Like at the end of the whole thing, it's like, Original Sin issue 2 is like, "It's the Orb," and I'm like, "Who?" Surprise!
I did too. Like,
well, okay,
I haven't read much Ghost Rider.
So,
but real quick on the Forever Evil thing, I mean, because we kind of just segued right over to Original Sin, to end at least to the Forever Evil thing right now, is what you were just saying, and this is what I've been telling everybody. Forever Evil wrapped everything up. It did. So and this is what I've been this is what I said in my opinions video. If you haven't been following DC like you haven't, Rob, don't go try and catch up for Forever Evil. Don't even bother. The whole thing wrapped up, all of our plot lines. Just start reading everything now.
Okay.
I'm considering this a fresh start for DC again. But now we have some trades that link in. Now you can go look at the history if you get really into it. Because when New 52 hit, you could read all the trades you want, but they didn't matter. Forever Evil hit, we're kind of restarting in a new direction. Like Superman is now fighting Doomsday again. Batman is now dealing with Nightwing becoming a secret agent and working with Huntress. The Flash is dealing with PTSD, which I thought was one of the weirdest decisions to go with. The Green Lanterns are fighting Green Lantern clones. Everybody's kind of going in a new direction, and we basically started like the equivalent of Phase 2. We're like on the next era of DC.
Huh.
So.
Okay. Cool. Well, that'll give me a chance.
I kind of wanted to close that out at least before we kind of go really deep into Original Sin, because I got tons of speculation for Original Sin.
I think everybody does.
There's not much to speculate about Forever Evil. It ended.
Well,
they left a few open-ended questions, but they did that on purpose to lead to the next event, which is the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor can eat and absorb the multiverse.
The Anti-Monitor's still around?
He's back now. That was the final panel of Forever Evil. The Anti-Monitor is hunting Darkseid.
Okay,
and he's going through the universes to do this.
The Anti-Monitor, God, if I remember, the Anti-Monitor was one of the most powerful characters in DC, wasn't he?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he is. I actually have to verify his moveset. He typically fights with the Green Lanterns because he's like a galactic level 1, and that's like a Green Lantern typical thing. But when he comes to the main planet, I'm pulling him up right here to verify everything. But he basically has he just swallows worlds is pretty much what he does, is from what I've gathered. I remember him vaguely because basically he was here for the Infinite Crisis thing.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my only speculation coming out of Forever Evil: are we setting up another Infinite Crisis? We wiped them out because they were so confusing. If we go back to that, I'm just gonna be like, that's it, I give up.
See, that's why I like sticking with Marvel, man. Marvel seems a lot less convoluted. Every once in a while they come back. Like they had the 198 after the House of M, and they're like, there's way too many mutants, let's just wipe all of them out or most of them out and start over again, which was cool. You know,
that's what DC did. They decided that they made too convoluted a history. I mean, for Final Crisis is still rated as one of the most confusing storylines ever written. No one knows what happened in that thing.
Yeah.
And so they rebooted it, and here it is. Anti-Monitor basically has devoured Earth 3 and is devouring other universes on the way, as he's seen declaring Darkseid will be mine. So he's going through universes, killing them off, searching for Darkseid.
Wow. That reminds me of Abraxas. Did you guys ever read about Abraxas?
No, you mentioned him the other day, though.
Okay, so
I vaguely remember looking it up. Right now I'm trying to find where the Infinity Gems are also, so.
Okay. So in like the mainstream Earth 616, like we have our Galactus, which is like a humanoid looking kind of thing. He appears different races, looks different ways, so on and so forth. There actually comes a point where they destroy Galactus with the ultimate nullifier, I think. And the result is this being called Abraxas, who jumps from universe to universe and just arbitrarily wipes them out. Like he's a totally chaotic being and just starts destroying all these different universes. So what ends up happening is they end up, I think, either destroying him or reconstituting Galactus. And I think Galactus absorbs Abraxas back into him. It's something along those lines. But he's basically what the Marvel multiverse would be like if there was no Galactus. So it was really kind of interesting because prior to that point, like it had been speculated that Galactus was kind of like this intricate, necessary part of the Marvel universe. But I think
they're implying that right now at the end of Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Because I remember reading in an interview, because Galactus got pulled out of the Prime Universe and placed into the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
In an interview, I remember reading about the ramifications of Age of Ultron. They're like, yes, Galactus is very important to the universe, and him not being here is going to cause a problem.
Yeah, see, I mean, Abraxas popped up. He was years ago, but it was weird because up to that point, people were kind of like, I mean, like Fantastic Four and like Eternity, the cosmic entity, and they were saying, well, Galactus is like an intrinsic part, like he consumes planets that could potentially hold life for Celestials and keeps the Celestial civilization in check so they don't overpopulate, the universe and all that kind of stuff. But
right.
But it was really interesting. Now, all right. The Ultimate Universe version of Galactus was weird to me because instead of him being...
I know what you're thinking of. The Prime one is now in the Ultimate Universe.
Oh, okay. Because in the Ultimate Universe...
He's in there. They just went through a whole event. I believe it was the Hungering or like Cataclysm or something, and that was Galactus going through and destroying everything.
That's right. Because
and it was our Galactus, not that cloudy, stupid version.
Yeah, because in the Ultimate Universe one, the Galactus they had, it wasn't even like a single being. It was like all these little itty bitty things that were flying around and they were consuming planets. That's right. I forgot about that because all right. So here's the question though. If the Galactus that we have doesn't even exist in our universe anymore, are they going to move back towards the direction of having a chaotic universe? And even then, are they going to include the idea of Celestials running rampant? Because of the basis of Galactus...
Maybe that's what's going on with Original Sin.
Maybe it is. I don't know.
Original Sin, I'm hoping opens the doors to a massive event, because we already know the follow-on event is Axis. Mm-hmm. And the assumption is right now is that means the Avengers and the X-Men are going to combine their efforts to stop some massive force. We don't have Galactus. The Watcher's dead. It's some kind of earth-changing, earth-shattering thing, and during that event, we know Wolverine's gonna die, or at least just before it. So
okay, but see now that might not necessarily be true though, because the one thing that we both universally hated, the one thing that we disagreed the most on, was that they made the Watcher like a being, like he was an alien basically. He wasn't like
they grounded him to Earth. Yeah, they made
exactly.
him a human. Basically.
He wasn't some disembodied kind of abstract that just chronicled stuff, which I like that element of him. When he was just kind of, he wasn't tangible. He couldn't be destroyed. He just chronicled stuff, and he existed out, who knows where.
And he really doesn't talk too much unless he really needs to, and you can't just go up and say hi. And...
Exactly, like during the Civil War, within the first few pages of the Civil War, it might even be halfway through, he appears, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody doesn't know who. It's who was it? Somebody doesn't know who he is. And Captain America, I think he says that he only shows up in the most dire times, and the fact that he's here means that like things are going to go really bad. But nonetheless, like I like that element of him being kind of abstract. But if the Watcher is now grounded, if he was basically an alien and he could be killed just as easily as anybody else, then is it really important that he died? Is it really relevant that he died? Because he's not someone that's so incredibly powerful that it's almost impossible to kill him. I mean, the guy was shot with a bullet and his eyes were taken out of his head. So,
well, to top it all off, it seemed they really drummed it down. Okay, and in my opinion, they really did. By having that Zero issue and setting him up in this direction, they really drummed down what could have been a earth-shattering, every superhero going, oh my God! Because by having Nova go talk to him and then fly back down to the planet and chat with Tony Stark, and they're like, oh yeah, that's just the Watcher. He lives up on the moon. Oh, we've known about him forever. Just no one's ever thought to talk to him. Like, really? That's the excuse we're going to go with. No one has thought to talk to him.
Yeah.
All-powerful being who knows where everything is going and what's going to happen. And not a single person has said, hey, by the way, what's your name and what's going to happen in the next 10 years?
Or at the very least, like nobody ever happened to run into him. Because if you remember, the Inhumans lived on the blue area of the moon for years and years and years and years and years. And not once did they ever stroll over.
Moves around the moon.
Yeah, and not once did they ever say, hey, let's go talk to this guy.
But then to top all that off, in issue 1, when he dies, they're just kind of like, oh, the Watcher's dead. We should probably figure out who did that.
That was disappointing. You know, that was really kind of saddening.
The guy who pretty much foresees all the worst events in time didn't see his own death. I would have been like, oh my God, it's 2012, the Mayan apocalypse.
I agree. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I see what you're saying, and I really hope that it's going to go in the direction of being like a really, really big event. Like, I'm really hoping it's going to be something big and exciting. But again, you know, it'd be different if this was, you know, an instance of like, you know, yet again, we see the Living Tribunal just laying like dead on the moon somewhere. I mean, that'd be kind of cool. You know, I mean, if they brought that back, but in turn, and instead it's actually something significant as opposed to just kind of like, well, you know, I mean, he'll come back eventually. I mean, if it was some major cosmic entity, you know, if like, you know, let's say Master Order and Lord Chaos, you know, we're laying dead on the moon. That'd be kind of a big deal because now you're talking about something powerful enough to destroy a cosmic entity, which means that only a handful of things could actually do that. But now it's just, you know, some alien more or less was shot and it's kind of, you know, people are trying to figure out why. But see, to me, the Orb, I agree with you guys, the Orb is not significant. He's not a major villain in Marvel. And I have a very hard time believing that such a low-level villain who has a helmet that looks like an eye on his head, you know, is going to play a significant role.
Listen to the podcast. I just want to jump in real quick. You don't have to go look up the Orb. At the end of this podcast, we will give you a rundown of who the Orb is and the reason why he's important and what Rob is talking about right now. Because we've kind of we're assuming people have read it. Basically, we've had Original Sin 0, Original Sin 1, Original Sin 2, and we've had, which is basically the Watcher's been killed. We've been looking for the killer. And what we've discovered is when the Watcher died in the tie-ins, everyone's getting their memories back of things that their original sins, things that were so bad they either forgot or wanted to ignore or that kind of a thing. In case in point, the Steve Rogers remembering that he was the guy that used the Infinity Gauntlet. Which, for the side note real quick, I did look it up. All the gems are shattered right now except the Time Gem. That's the one that vanished after they took it from Steve Rogers.
Okay.
But the Orb shows up, and this is all we have on him so far. The entirety of issue 2, the Orb is talking with a hood on his head about how he can see things and the eye is important and they need to try and get away from the superheroes. He doesn't really imply very much, but the ending of the entire issue, we find out that the man with the hood holding the eyeball is the Orb. About as low list of a villain as you can get.
This is the equivalent of Eddie Brock before he became Venom being a bad guy. Yeah, I mean, this is a super low cup. This is equivalent to someone like Baron von Strucker being the mastermind behind all of this. Some guy who's a regular dude and was a leader of Hydra at one point in time.
So who's they who wield power?
I don't know. No one knows.
Yeah, we don't. They haven't implied that yet.
They've never said that. They you know, and that was something that came back way back when, you know, when he first received his magical power. Not even really magical powers.
Yeah.
The guy doesn't really have any powers per se. He has a helmet that looks like a giant eye because his face is disfigured.
Well, and it helps him see, right? Because his face got really disfigured.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. But in terms of like actual amazing, crazy powers.
Oh no, he did. Okay, yeah, he could hardly disfigure. But I don't think the helmet helps him see. I think the helmet is just he wears the. Yeah, I don't know. He's just so confused.
Yeah, he's not. It's you know.
Z-list is not even.
Well,
funny.
Yeah, he's not an important
it
character.
It seems like his helmet has some magical powers from what I've read, but it doesn't seem like it's on a tier that it would be of any importance to the whole universe.
He can his power is that helmet, which we're still unclear if it's still a helmet or just a giant eyeball on a head now. That's the biggest question that I have at the moment, because are we sticking with the helmet? Because that makes him even more Z-list. Anyway, the helmet allows him to hypnotize people, and he can shoot lasers.
Yeah, he's not a significant character.
I would say eye lasers, but it's eye laser.
Shoot a laser out of his eye. But no, he's not important. I mean, you've got really, really big characters, you know, like, for example, Juggernaut gets his powers from Sidorak. You know, I mean, you've got some characters out there, you know, that exist in other dimensions, Dormammu and Doctor Strange. There's some really, really powerful beings out there from other dimensions. And I have a very hard time believing that the end-all, be-all, the big figurehead and the one guy behind all of this is the Orb. And if it is, I would be so disappointed by Marvel to find out that the Orb is the guy that is behind the whole thing, because as I understand it, they still don't know who actually killed the Watcher. It's just the Orb has this eye in his hand.
Yeah, they've got to give him something special, right? Like, or say he's controlled by somebody special.
Now what's...
Well, that's what they better do, because you have to look at this from a competitive stance too. Right now, Original Sin is basically competing with Forever Evil. Forever Evil just ended, and you know, if you're trying to find it, so basically, Forever Evil, we have the Crime Syndicate, the evil version of the Justice League as our core villain. They are all powerful, all knowing. They killed the Justice League, and in Marvel, we have a guy with an eyeball helmet. Like,
okay, but all right. Here's the thing.
How is that a competitive thing at all?
Here's one thing to keep in mind. All right. And I hate having I hate coming back to this all the time, but it's a reoccurring theme in Marvel. The House of M. All right. After the House of M storyline, there are some characters that pop back up again that were either as powerful as they were before or more powerful. So it's entirely possible that the Orb is...
Most of those characters were mutants.
That's true.
The House of M affected the mutant side of the house.
Well, it affected superhumans in addition.
The Orb is from Ghost Rider. I
mean, he is.
You couldn't even pick a Z-list villain from like Captain America or Iron Man or somebody that we could at least go, oh look, it's the guy that was in Captain America 2 in version 9. You know, no, he's a guy who was in Ghost Rider. Has Ghost Rider ever really been a big entity of the? He doesn't even cross over.
Yeah,
when was the last time we saw Ghost Rider in a crossover?
Fear Itself, maybe.
Well, but he's a solo act for the most part.
He cameos a crossover. I'm talking. When was the last time you saw Ghost Rider in a crossover where he was a core element?
Yeah, I mean I understand what you're saying.
I've seen more Squirrel Girl in more roles than I've seen Ghost Rider outside of his book.
All right, I understand what you're saying. Like I get what you're saying. I mean he's not a major guy, but you got to keep in mind, man. I mean, a lot of stuff changed after the House of M. I mean, we have the 198, we have the Terrigen Mists, which were being given to people. We don't know how far Quicksilver got with the Terrigen Mist, because if you remember, after the House of M, you had the Son of M, and you had Quicksilver who stole the Terrigen Mist from the Inhumans, or the Terrigen Crystals rather, from the Inhumans, and started giving people the Terrigen Mist to try to bring their powers back and send them into overdrive. Like, there was a really cool scene where Callisto...
the Inhuman thing is more what came out of House of M.
Yeah.
The mutant growing came out of House of M. Wolverine taking over the school came out of House of M. I don't know if the guy with the eyeball helmet came out of House of M.
Well, no, I mean, he didn't come out of the House of M, but there's some stuff to keep in mind, too. Even now, like, during the Inhuman event, like, you still have the Terrigen Mist that's expanding all over the world. And so those people who were Inhumans and were part of different factions other than the ones that we saw in the actual Inhuman comics, I mean, they're developing abilities. They're changing. They're becoming, what the Inhumans become when they're exposed to the Terrigen Mist. Now, we don't know what the Orb looks like under his helmet. All we know is that it's just the Orb, and he's got the eye of the Watcher in his hand. So we don't really know what the ramifications are. It's entirely possible that the Orb descends from Inhumans. He was never exposed to the Terrigen Mist because he's an Inhuman, and he has been exposed to the Terrigen Mist now. It's entirely possible he's going to develop powers. I would think that if he was, he probably would have used them by now, and it may very well be the case that he was the one that killed the Watcher by using the powers he developed from the Inhumans. But the problem is that when it comes to an Inhuman developing powers after the Terrigen Mist, it's a throw of the dice. They don't know what they're going to be. They have no earthly clue. The Inhuman gene activates, they evolve, and go from there.
I just found out something, because the way this wiki for him, because he's such a Z-list character, his wiki sucks.
Yeah, it's like what, 2.5 paragraphs?
See, this is why I don't use Wikipedia.
No, I only use it when it's the Orb. Come
the
on.
Orb.
I'm not gonna go find his 2009 Ghost Rider Heavens on Fire 1 and 2 appearance. It's not happening. But there's 2 orbs, and one of them is a guy with a giant eyeball for a head who uses a ray gun. Now, going off of what you're saying there, maybe he's a mutant. Although I would kill the god of the mutants if my power was my head turned into a giant eyeball.
Yeah, I'd be pretty pissed off. Like I'd got the shit into the stick in that one.
It's like in a Ben Stein commercial, you know, dry eyes.
Dry eyes. Use a ray gun. I don't know. I mean, that's one of the crazy things, because I think that one of the things that people have a habit of doing is they see a crossover like Original Sin, and they focus only on the Original Sin. But there's all kinds of stuff that's going on, you know, in Marvel Comics now, in addition to the Original Sin storyline. I mean, the one thing that we see all the time with Marvel, and I'm not sure if this happens with DC, is that Marvel writers will sit down and they'll say, okay, we want to have a major event that's going to start in, you know, January of 2014. And so virtually all of the comics belonging to characters and teams that are going to be part of that event, starting in like the beginning of 2013, will start to segue that direction. They'll start to segue to that center point. And then once that event starts, then there'll just be crossovers and tie-ins. But the comics will pretty much all revolve around that event until the event's over, and then they'll split back off and do their own thing again. And so when you have something like the Inhuman event, where you have all these different things going on, when you have something like the Infinity event that ended not too long ago, where you had Thanos who was hunting around for his kid, you know, you had like all these different things that were going on. And it's not entirely out of the question that they're all not directly tied into what's going on with Original Sin. So I you know, 2 issues in or 3 issues in, I guess, out of 8, it's really difficult to tell. But
here's what my concern is. I asked my guy at my comic book store about this one because I didn't even know this. But apparently, Bendis took a Z-list villain and made him like the prominent villain in some kind of recent event. And the guy's thinking that the guy at my comic book store thinks that this is an attempt to do that again with the Orb, but with not Bendis writing it. You know,
man, I'm gonna tell you something.
What event had a Z-list villain take over though? I can't remember what he said. It was not Fear itself. There was some other big event that just happened that it turned out some surprise guy was behind the whole thing, and he was some like obscure villain.
A newer event?
Yeah, it was something that recently came by. It was a Bendis event. Maybe like a Bendis. Maybe I can find it out.
Well, let's scroll through my 170 gigabytes worth of comics and see.
Oh, that'll narrow it down for you. You're good with that. Don't worry about that.
I mean, Battle of the Atom was 3 generations of X-Men.
Oh man, he writes way too much stuff.
Avengers versus X-Men.
Was Infinity? Who was the mastermind behind Infinity?
That was Thanos.
That's Thanos. Not a deep
it was about Thanos, but he wasn't the mastermind that started the event. He just took advantage of the event.
I thought he was the one that started it.
Maybe I haven't gotten that far in the comics. Maybe he did, but from what I'm seeing so far, he's just taking advantage of it. He's
because
not actually
the prelude to it is Avengers 14 through 17, and then New Avengers issue number 8, and then it picks up from there. And then it starts with Infinity issue number 1, and then it spreads throughout the Avengers, Mighty Avengers, New Avengers.
Was it Siege?
The Thunderbolts.
Who was behind Siege?
Maybe it was
Norman Osborn.
That was
no, that was Norman Osborn invading Asgard, I thought.
Yeah, Norman Osborn leads a team of I think the Thunderbolts or
it was his Dark Avengers,
like anti-heroes. Yeah, and
he like replaced the Avengers with his own Avengers.
Right, and he tries to take over Asgard.
Yeah,
I'm reading that.
All right. Well, right, I mean, we're not going to be able to find this on the podcast, but there is a story where some Z-list villain came out of nowhere and was the guy behind it, and I guess everybody loved it, and that's what my guy at the comic book store thinks they're doing with the Orb. Now, bear in mind, everybody, we're only at issue 2 for Original Sin, so if you listen to this in like 6 months and the whole event's over,
yeah, don't be too rough on us. But I don't. I mean, but that's what I love about these things.
The Orb lasted 2 battles.
That's what I love about these things, though, is because it's like there's so much speculation that can go on here. I mean, in the end, like we only know 2 major things. One, the Orb has the eye of the Watcher, and the Watcher's dead. So we have no real idea what's going to be going on here. Now, what I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, at the end of all this, is that Richard Rider comes back. Now, whether that'll actually happen or not, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that'll actually take place.
You can't do that many obscure guys, man.
Super obscure Richard Rider.
There has to be very. I mean, I don't know. They might be trying to shoehorn a little too many of these obscure characters in there. When every comic book reader has to go, who's the Orb? that's a slight issue there. We need some kind of recognition with this guy.
Well, I mean, I don't mind the idea of obscure characters popping up in comics. I mean, that's something that I enjoy. I mean, for example, Madrox, Jamie Madrox, Multiple Man. I mean, he shows up in Civil War, but he's like, doesn't have like a major role. I mean, he's just kind of there, and he's, anti-registration. But
yeah, I'm fine with bringing back obscure characters. Like, I don't know what they say, and I don't care how many of you people like Jessica Drew, the Spider-Woman. She shows up everywhere, and I can't find anything where she matters.
Not
it's
really.
Just always like, it's like the Avengers do everything, and Jessica Drew's like, and I'm still here.
Well, okay. Indirectly, she serves a big role during the Secret Invasion because, if I remember, she is cloned by the Queen of the, or she's copied by the Queen of the Skrulls.
She's always there, a part of it, behind the scenes. Like,
yeah.
She's never. I've read a lot of Avengers, guys. A lot of Avengers, X-Men, a lot of crossover events, and she like never prominently pops up. It's always just like, we need a female to level out the team right now. Throw in Spider-Woman.
Well, okay, but I mean, all right, take for example like the Age of Ultron. Like, how significant was it really that Susan Storm went back in time with Wolverine? I mean, it wasn't even her that convinced Wolverine to...
Exactly. So why don't you take the character that shows up everywhere and just give her that role?
I mean, it was Wolverine that convinced himself. Like, Wolverine from the...
Fantastic Four is, like, so far separated from the Marvel Universe as it is, we don't need Sue Storm. Richards, whatever she is now.
But you had, like...
Oh, they reboot that one, like, 9,000 times, too. Oh, the Fantastic Four is now from the future, and in this alternate future, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and this one's on a microscopic level, and they just went on vacation on the hair of a dog. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with this whole Original Sin event. But what I will say is that if all this turns out to be the Orb as the mastermind behind this event, I'd be pissed. I'd be really, really pissed off because
no, wait, hold on. Now, with the right writing, that could still turn into something epic. Now, I agree with you right now. But what if it turns out that the Orb has behind the scenes manipulating everything? And, like, they give you, like, how it all pieces together, and they've been dropping hints forever. And this has been something they've been setting up. Now, I highly doubt it. But this has been something that they've been setting up forever, and you just missed it, and it's so epic, and it's so amazing.
I would believe that if it was a Chris Claremont story. But it's not. It is not a Chris Claremont story.
If they were to do anything like that, it would be he's getting controlled by an A-lister.
I could see that. I could see that happening.
And he's just like
the last appearance of the Orb was Incredible Hulk 7.1. He didn't even get into like a full issue of the Hulk. He was just a random guy.
Yeah. There's got to be something bigger going on here. At least I hope there is. Because if this is it, I mean, if this is, if what we see here is pretty much going to be the remainder of the story, the Orb's just doing some crazy stuff and people are like, what in the world's going on? I'm going to be really disappointed.
There's something that we haven't brought up at all yet, though.
What?
The Orb has one eye. Where's the other?
There's another Orb.
There's another eye.
That's a good point. That is a good point. I didn't even think about that. Where is the other eye? Because they took both eyes out of the Watcher.
He's only holding one eye.
That is a good point. Man. All right. Okay, so all right, let's talk about this. Mind blown. All right, let's talk about this. So where's the other eye? Okay, who could... All right.
We've been harping on the Orb now for like 30 minutes. We have once not mentioned there is another eye, Rob.
Then who would have the other eye?
I stand by my statement. I don't know. I don't know. Original Sin's like the link. No.
I mean, who would have the other eye?
I still stand by my theory that Angela's going to kill Wolverine because he's the one that pulled her out during the Age of Ultron event, but that doesn't do it for Original Sin. Unless, hold on. What if Wolverine's sin is we find out that he blew up the timeline, everyone goes to kill him, and we find out that the second eyeball is being held by, like, Cyclops, adult Cyclops, because you always have to specify that because there's, like, 9 of them.
Yeah. That's stupid
or what
X-Men
if
now,
Angela has it? Or what if Thanos has the other eye? What if somebody that matters has the other eye? Then the question is, how did the Orb get the second one? But hey, Thanos, buddy, you mind if I take that squishy thing?
I wonder if they gave it to Doctor Strange, or if Doctor Strange has it. I know he has the Eye of Agamotto. I think that's what it's called. But
no, because Doctor Strange is in the issues. He's going through trying to figure out what happened to the Watcher.
He is trying to figure out what happened to the Watcher. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's in seclusion.
No, he isn't. No, he's there.
I thought he was in seclusion.
He went with Punisher into like some corpse realm.
Huh. I thought okay, is that a tie-in? Because I don't remember that.
That
as
might
part
be
of...
in the tie-in. I've read all three, and I don't know what, or all four that are out right now. So I don't know which is in which.
Okay, I need to read that tie-in if it's in Avengers. I haven't read that tie-in yet.
Yeah, no, it's him and Punisher. They're in like some alternate world right now, trying to figure out, because I guess some like great beings have died in some alternate universe.
How did the Punisher end up there?
Even the Punisher asked that. He's like, "Why am I here? Why am I here?"
Yeah,
and Doctor Strange is
normally just doing his own thing, like killing some gangsters and stuff.
Yeah, just out of the blue, he gets asked to go over there, and it's like an ongoing joke. Why is he here? Doctor Strange can figure out everything, and then Doctor Strange misses the most obvious, that the monster was shot with a bullet. And Punisher's like, and that's why I'm here.
Okay. Me and Dave had this conversation the other day. I was telling him about this guy. You ever heard of a guy named Mad Jim Jaspers?
Yeah, you told me about that the other day. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The guy that could change all of the reality around it.
Yeah, he could warp reality. All right.
I'm just gonna say they need to rename that guy.
That's an awesome name. I don't know what you're talking. That's an awesome name. If Mad Jim Jaspers is coming back, that would be amazing. No, I mean, no.
Crazy speculation.
I am not throwing out crazy speculation.
You've got like a jar next to your desk with random obscure characters, and you're like, Mad Jim Jaspers, that would be cool.
Let me tell you something, man. I am very happy with pulling random names out of a hat.
The old man that was on the curb next to Uncle Ben, that would be cool.
That would be cool. Uncle Ben's coming back. Uncle Ben's been warping reality for the last like 70 years. Like he's been there the whole time, just nobody knows it.
How screwed up would that be if Peter Parker is
But they would break the last rule. I mean, we used to have the rule that went on forever. Bucky Rogers, what was it? Bucky Rogers can never come back from the dead. Oh, look, Bucky Rogers is back from the dead.
Bucky Rogers? Who are you talking about? Bucky Barnes, you mean?
Barnes, yeah, Barnes.
Oh my God, man.
I even said it in the video. I had to edit it out. I called him Bucky Rogers like 3 times in the video.
Yep, Bucky Barnes.
Bucky Barnes. It was 3 people that were never allowed to come back from the dead until they came back from the dead.
Yeah, Bucky Barnes. I don't think it was Dick Grayson. Who was the second Robin?
No. Oh, yeah, Tim Drake.
And
Tim Drake
Uncle
was never
Ben.
allowed, but he's back as Red Hood.
Yeah.
And Uncle Ben is not allowed to come back. Do not break the last of that cardinal rule.
Let me tell you something, man. Spider-Man fans would be pissed if Uncle Ben comes back.
That would completely destroy. Okay, you know what? That's no.
I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for issue number 6. No, okay. I'm not drawing random names out of a hat. I am.
Oh, we're picking right up where we left off?
We are. I am.
Oh, we had a crash there, guys.
We had a
just
crash.
A heads up. I don't know how that's going to edit together.
Our Skype crashed out.
You didn't even skip a beat. You just don't. You're like, I got this on the tip of my tongue. Get out, tip of my tongue.
I am not drawing names out of a hat. Mad Jim Jaspers is one of the coolest villains in the history of Marvel Comics. The guy warped reality.
Put your camera down. I want to see around you. Where's the hat? I want to.
I've got
I don't believe it. That's such an obscure name.
I've got a shaker bottle right here that I never use except for water. So.
That ambush bug, though.
The what now?
Get ambush bug.
Ambush bug.
It would be so cool if DC.
Oh my God. But I'm just saying.
What about Darkclaw, man? What if Darkclaw is behind all of this?
All right, now you guys are just being obnoxious. I'm just saying. Mad Jim Jaspers is a great villain, and he can warp reality. He was an omniversal threat. He was a threat to multiple realities, and I think it'd be awesome if he would pop back up again and was doing crazy stuff.
There has to be a limit on Marvel
does
events. They gotta
not
be like,
have to be a
all
limit.
right, how many obscure guys can we use? Oh, we're gonna go with the Orb. Okay, that's like 10 points off of the obscurity list here.
Yeah, and those 10 points are gained back plus some if Mad Jim Jaspers is the one pulling the strings.
No, but that's more out of our obscurity tally there. We can't just keep pulling up you can't have the entire thing as being run by Z-list superheroes or villains who have not been around for the last 10 years.
No, sir. It's entirely possible to have that.
Okay, well, how would they explain that one? Oh, by the way, we seem to have missed the fact that Mad Jim Jaspers came back and organized every crappy villain and gave them eyeballs to go play with.
Well, I mean, the guy's crazy. So, you know. I mean, what do you want me to say? He's mad. Mad Jim Jaspers. I'm just pulling stuff out of nowhere.
He's mad as in he's really mad.
I don't know. I'm just pulling stuff out of my ass. But I don't know. I mean, it's
Well, you know what? Let me ask this then for everybody who's listening to this podcast, because we've been going for a while about this. Then, what do you think? Do you think Rob is right? Do you think it would be awesome to have another crazy obscure character come in? Do you want to see the Orb be behind everything, or do you want to see like some major big wig suddenly step forward, like issue 4 or 5, and announce that it's him behind everything?
No. Let's quantify that and say that Mad Jim Jaspers is obscure, but he has the ability to warp reality. He can warp reality. He can change reality as he sees fit. So just keep that in the back of your heads when you're deciding Who's right, me or Benny?
That is true.
Now, do you think it's my theory that it's Dark Claw behind everything, or David's theory that it's Ambush Bug?
Ambush Bug. It's Ultimate Spider-Man.
What is your theories on the direction that they're going to take the original Sin series? We're only 2 technically issues in, 1 tie-in, 1 prelude, so there's so many directions that this could go at this point. I mean, the fact that they even exposed the orb, it throws us for a loop to begin with it, and it started all of these discussions. Maybe that's what Marvel was going for. Maybe it will be Mad Jim Jaspers after that. And then issue 4 will be some other obscure guy. And then issue 5 will be some other obscure guy. And then we find out it's Thanos controlling all of them.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it could be a massive event because we only do have 1 tie-in. But, I mean, we've seen events. I mean, Age of Apocalypse was a pretty lengthy event. It was 80-some-odd comics, and it wasn't a super long event in terms of
stuff. I think it's only like 20, 25 comics total.
Oh, really? I thought they were announcing it as they went along.
Every month what you need to grab and everything already.
Oh, okay. See, I know they used to do that. Like, they did that with Age of Apocalypse. So, like, they would have on the back, like, the checklist, for which comics you should buy. Yeah, that's what they got right now.
It's floating on a little, like, postcards in the stores.
Well, that's disappointing. 20 issues? Yeah. Well,
they better be like I got it around here somewhere, but it's 8 main issues, and I think it's 2 to 3 tie-ins per month, other than the first month.
There better be a good 20 issues. I'm going to be very mad if it's the Orb running all this.
Every issue is just kind of like the big reveal, like Captain America getting his memory back. And, I believe in Spider-Man, we're going to find out that somebody else was bit by the spider. In the original Sins, we're going to find out where they went, what happened,
Maybe it's Mad Jim Jaspers coming back.
Oh my God! He was bit by a radioactive spider.
He was bit by a radioactive spider.
And spit webs out of his blood.
He was bit by a reality warping spider. I don't know.
Dude, if they had that spider, I want that spider.
Yeah, I'd take that. I'd take that spider. It'd be pretty cool. But I don't know. So,
so basically, we're just running on 1,001 different tangents and theories and ideas at this point, and pretty much Rob is going to fight to the end of the earth that it's Mad Jim Jaspers.
Yes, sir.
And I will fight until the end of time that it's Dark Claw.
And you'll be wrong.
They're bringing back the Allegram. What I don't even say it. Whatever that universe was, the merged universe. We're getting it back, man. That's what the original Sin is. The original Sin is that they dissolved everything. We're bringing it all back.
I'm sticking to that Marvel bought the rights to Ambush Bug from DC.
I don't know, man. The end of Age of Apocalypse, we got Angela back, and it was like, yeah, who? Oh, yeah, that Spawn girl from like 20,000 years ago. Yeah,
that chick from Spawn.
That chick from Spawn.
I don't know. I mean, either way, no matter how it happens, I'm kind of glad. But see, I'm on the fence about Marvel doing crossover events because I think the problem with Marvel doing crossover events, and I think you and I talked about this before, Benny, was that they do it just because they can. Like crossover events used to be cool.
DC's doing it too. That's become the thing. All of them are doing the math. The only people not doing the crossover events is Image, and that's because they just don't produce enough comics. They produce too many individual comics and not enough big event comic. They don't cross anything over.
Yeah.
But like even DC got delayed on Forever Evil, and they've already started the new one. So we've already got like 3 issues into Future's End, and we've got Forever Evil was still wrapping up. Like you started the next event and you didn't finish the last one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, see, here's where I think Marvel kind of screwed up. Way back in the day, like way back in the day, you had those early Marvel comics. Like you had Marvel team-ups, you had Marvel 2-in-1, you had Strange Tales, Tales of Suspense, all that kind of stuff. Those were stomping grounds. I mean, you could show up on Marvel's door, knock on the door, and say, "I want to do comics," and they'd say, "Okay, fine, go over there, do some stuff, and we'll see what happens." And if you're popular, then we'll throw you into Fantastic Four. If you pick up in Fantastic Four, we'll give you your own comic. That was the formula for Marvel back in the day. And they got away from that. Like, they walked away from that. They got rid of those for the most part. They tried to bring them back, but they were short miniseries. They were less than 10 issues. And they just kind of disappeared entirely.
I mean, everyone's getting a miniseries right now.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is...
Young Cyclops from All New X-Men just got a miniseries.
Yeah, but there's a difference. Like, I mean, when a person... Like, Cyclops is a main character. Like, he's a mainstay.
You're right. Cyclops is. Young Cyclops... From the all-new X-Men?
But I mean, Cyclops has been established. No matter how they do Cyclops, if it's Ultimate Cyclops, if it's all-new Cyclops, if it's Cyclops from Battle of the Atom, which is just the all-new Cyclops, regardless of who it is, it's Cyclops. Everybody knows who Cyclops is. He's an established character. So if a writer shows up that doesn't know what they're doing, they're going to say, "What's this guy doing? This guy's screwing up one of the best characters in Marvel." As opposed to some newly created character, some super obscure character like the Orb, they can kind of give him some comic on the back shelf that you would probably never see in Marvel Comics and just say, "Write stories and we'll see what you do." But the problem here is
if the Orb gets a comic, I quit.
Mark my words, this is what's going to happen. If the orb is the center of this whole thing with original sin, then the original sin event's going to come to an end, and they're going to say Orb issue number 1.
Orb issue number 1.
Orb issue number 1
from a storyline.
And the tagline will be something along the lines of, yeah, he can see you.
Yes, the amazing Orb issue number 1.
On you.
Yeah, it would be silly, but I don't know. I mean, it's crossovers are cool. Crossovers were kind of fun, but crossovers were better when they were a rarity, because I don't want to buy a Marvel comic all the time and see like big crossovers.
When, it was like a once every couple of years thing.
Exactly.
And now we literally have them twice a year at this point. We're not even finishing up one and we go into the next one.
Exactly.
We just keep rolling through these things at this point. They hype each other up. I mean, Forever Evil ended by hyping up the Anti-Monitor, which apparently is supposed to be 2 to 3 years out, and also opened up Future's End. Like, how are you opening up multiple crossovers at this point? Like,
yeah, I mean, I prefer just keep them separate. Keep have Amazing Spider-Man. Because we have like Peter Parker back as Spider-Man now. So have Amazing Spider-Man. Have Peter Parker doing his own thing in a solo comic. Bring back Captain America and have him do his own thing in his own solo comic. Yeah, but it's not necessarily like it used to, because now
it went through dimensions.
yeah, but now it's always like Captain America as part of the Avengers. If you remember, you had Captain America in Strange Tales, I think it was, or Tales of Suspense.
No, he's got his own comic. He's had his own comic for a while.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is he appeared as a side item to another comic. Then he had a solo comic. Then he appeared in the Avengers, and his solo comic came out periodically. And then he was had his own solo comic, which maintained up until the Ed Brubaker run from Volume 5, and then kept going, which is when we saw Winter Soldier come back. But I want to see him have his own solo comic and see Avengers really kind of become like a semi-annual thing, become like a quarterly event as opposed to...
I see. You said kick out the Avengers and make that the special event.
Yeah, exactly. And
kind of like what they're doing with the movies. The movies, we could have an Avenger movie every year if they wanted to, but instead they're doing the Avengers like they're supposed to be done. They're being just like the Justice League, just like X-Men, like the core group. They're only really supposed to be brought together for these big events that requires every single
Exactly. I mean, because if you were like, for the longest time, you had the gold and blue team of X-Men. I mean, you had to split into 2 factions. So, to me, that was one of the great things. Like the Avengers had their own comics that was cool and went on and on and on, and that was interesting. And it was a great way because Hank Pym never had his own comic. I mean, he never, he was never like an individual running solo. It was always him in the Avengers.
What was Hank Pym going to do? We're just going to have an entire 22 pages of him tinkering?
Pretty much. It's pretty. That's exactly what I was thinking. You'd have a solo comic of him.
The invisibility belt.
Yeah, you would have like a 20-year lead up to him creating Ultron. I mean, I don't know what you would do. I don't know what you would do with Hank Pym in his own comic. So it wouldn't be fascinating. So we got to see him in his own comic. But, do what?
Ant-Man had a comic as Ant-Man. Yeah, because there's that whole solo story where he becomes he goes crazy.
No, I thought that was part of the Avengers storyline, because that was the second or third return of Ant-Man or of Ultron.
Then there's that whole story where I think.
Oh no, you're right. Because
comic was the guy that stole the.
Yes, that's what happened. The Ant-Man comic is the guy who stole everything. You're right. I don't think Henry Pym has had his own.
Yeah, no, Hank Pym's never had his own solo comic.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
he's always been an Avenger, and then when Ant-Man finally got his own, it wasn't even him.
Yeah, it was. It was oh god, I should know this. Lang. God, what was his first name?
Scott Lang.
Scott Lang, yes. It was Scott Lang's own comic. That's when Ant-Man got his own kind of thing going on. But nonetheless, I mean, I want to see a return to characters, for the most part, having their own storylines. Ant-Man can appear every so often, or whoever it is that's running in the Avengers now. Like they need to really kind of establish the core group again and have them run their own original thing. Like have them go around every 4 months or something like that and have a release of the new Avengers. But I want to see a return to older comics. I want to see these crossovers go away, being such a constant thing.
They're not going to, though.
I know they're not going to. I know this is the new trend.
This is the topic for an entirely different podcast at this point. But what Avengers did, okay. The nerd culture and geek culture in itself. You got to go back to Whedon beginning it with Buffy and all that. Buffy and Angel started the giant, massive crossover stuff. That brought geek culture to the prime. Things like Firefly and stuff like that started to build little niche the groups. But then Big Bang Theory, as much as I hate to say it, really made it mainstream. No, it did. It did. Big Bang Theory merged geek culture and humor into modern-day mainstream comedy. And made it okay to really get involved in all this stuff. And basically, based out of Big Bang Theory, Marvel took the movies And the fact that they were picking up steam and Big Bang Theory could hype things up, started doing Iron Man, which then led to a giant crossover movie, which then turned into the Avengers movie event, which is then turned, and then on top of that, you've got shows that came out of the Whedon era with Buffy and Angel, such as Lost. And we're going to do an entire show, which is 7 seasons of one plot. That's all we're going to do. Things like Alias started this up. And this all came out of the geek culture. And now the geek culture has overtaken everything else in reality pretty much. It's everywhere. You get things like Game of Thrones. You know, my mom watches Big Bang Theory and Lost. Like, my mom watches Big Bang Theory, and she's trying to get the jokes. Okay?
I never got into Big Bang Theory, believe it or not.
I've got a friend who was playing the Marvel Avengers of something or other Facebook game and was telling me that his mom knows these characters because of that game. Knows the Marvel characters, not the movies, because Marvel is on Facebook now.
Let me tell you something, man. As long as Marvel's popular, I'm okay with it because my channel's gonna keep growing. but no, like you are 100% right with that.
Right, and what everyone has discovered, especially with the age of digital download. So if you miss an episode of your TV show, you can just go download the episode. In this day and age, people want to see giant universe continuities, giant things coming together, giant projects that you feel like you're awesome because you know everything about that right now. I've just made a video on my video game channel, it goes up today, about how Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed are apparently in the same universe. Ubisoft is making the Ubiverse. They're like, Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, and Watch Dogs are all in one thing. Like, everyone is doing this now. Everyone wants to cross-promote their products through, and they've discovered that this is one of the most ingenious marketing tools ever, because if I really like this, and you take the time to mention something, that's why they do these crossover events. Why do you think in Original Sin, every Avenger showed up to fight the Orb? And then we got the Orb. The Orb of all people. Why do you think they bring up all these obscure superheroes? Because those obscure superheroes you're not going to see in something or other and be like, well, that was a really cool guy. Let me go get that book.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It was cool to read Original Sin and to see Nick Fury and Wolverine. People keep giving me hassle because of how I say Wolverine. To see Nick Fury, Wolverine, and Captain America sitting at a table eating together. I mean, that's cool. You know, that crossover element is cool. But how good can a crossover story be if those are the only stories that we're getting? I mean, crossovers were meant to be major events. They were meant to be things that were colossal in size.
I'm pretty sure that's why they've started going in the direction of, because Forever Evil did it, I know Original Sin's doing it, Infinity did it, where they're coming out with their own core book to the event. Remember back in the day, the core event would just run through one book. You know, it'd be like, hey, Spider-Man for the next 10 issues is going to be about Maximum Carnage. Enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, the Avengers is going to be about the Secret War for the next 10 issues. Enjoy. Now it's, here's your core book, and what you see is a lot of the other books just keep going like normal. Now, this creates our continuity errors, because it's like, how the hell was Green Lantern fighting all these clones when at the same time he was trapped in the Firestorm Matrix? Or, you know, how is Wolverine in 20 different events and books and what? You know, I showed you the image of the joke where Wolverine's entire week is pretty much doing something.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where these continuity errors come out of. And I think that's why they're now doing, okay, well, if you liked Captain America, he's in the Infinity event with Iron Man and Random Avenger number 3. And guess who's getting his own book at the end of this? And that's pretty much it. And if you just keep cranking these things out, you keep cross-promoting your universe, and you keep getting more product out.
But see, to me, I would prefer less crossovers and great stories as opposed to consistent crossovers with mediocre stories. Because the problem with a crossover...
And I agree with you on that one. Because, and this is definitely something you can see. Bendis is he's kind of tapping the bottom of his creative barrel at this point.
Yeah.
You know, and these events are starting to feel kind of dragged out and drawn on, and like, okay, guys, like, how many times are we going to have like an earth-shattering event? And I think that's my biggest complaint. Why can't we have a giant crossover event that doesn't end with the end of the world if they fail?
You know, and see, here's the thing. Like, solo comics allow characters to grow. All right, Ed Brubaker's run of Captain America, many consider to be probably one of the best runs of Captain America, because you saw more character development of Captain America during that run than you had seen in a lot of previous years. But when you have major crossovers, you see the established element of a character existing in that crossover. They don't necessarily grow as much as they would.
I'm pulling the reins on Rob. I'm yanking Rob, we got to calm down about the crossovers. That's another discussion, another day. And if people want to hear that, we could easily hit that on the next topic. Let's discuss the Orb real fast for the next 10 minutes. Explain who the Orb is, give them some history of the Orb, and then we'll wrap this up for the first episode and see what people think and get their opinions.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. You're not going to yell at me?
No, I'm not going to yell.
I don't know. You seem like you could get very angry and like your head goes on fire and you get like a skull thing going. You could look like the Ghost Rider. Into an excellent segue, the Orb is originally a Ghost Rider villain.
The Orb is actually Mad Jim Jaspers in disguise.
Oh my god.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, all right. So the original Orb is named Drake Shannon, and he was born in West Virginia. He was a motorcycle stunt rider, and he owned half of the traveling motorcycle stunt show that would feature Johnny Blaze, who would become Ghost Rider. All right, the other half of the show was owned by Blaze's mentor, Crash Simpson. Basically, eventually, as time moves on, he becomes like he's the evil version of the owner. You know, they always get the one guy who just wants the money and does all the stupid stuff. Well, he does the stupid stuff and he gets horribly disfigured trying to do some crazy stunt to sort of out of the way of hitting Crash Simpson. Where is it? After many miles of neck-to-neck competition, Shannon deliberately swerved towards Simpson in an effort to force Simpson to crash, the mentor of Johnny Blaze. Okay, and he basically the maneuver caused him to crash and disfigure his face. So after that, for reasons unknown, according to the wiki, pretty sure there's probably some obscure comic back in the 70s when he came out that explained what happened. But for whatever the reason, he was given a motorcycle helmet by They Who Wield Power, which looked like a giant eyeball and gave him the ability to hypnotize people and shoot one giant laser. And it is that point that he became a Ghost Rider villain. Yep. Okay. Basically, he goes through a long series of things so that fighting against Ghost Rider, and it takes Ghost Rider and Spider-Man to eventually team up and defeat him permanently. From what I've gathered through here, he seems to pop up against Spider-Man occasionally. I don't know. Does Spider-Man get all Z-list villains at some point? Is that just how it works?
Man, it's Spider-Man, dude. Spider-Man's cool, but he's just not that powerful.
So you gotta give him all the Z-list guys?
I mean, aside from Carnage, he doesn't really fight, in his own comics, some major villains.
It's not like Spider-Man could go, like, solo up against Ultron or anything.
Yeah.
That would be funny.
That would be hilarious.
He tried that. It didn't go over well in the Age of Ultron.
He got incinerated, I think, in Age of Ultron.
So he has a continued like a rivalry against the Ghost Rider. He eventually crosses paths with Hawkeye, has to fight Hawkeye. There's another guy who really can't do much else other than fight like Z-listers.
Yep. He appeared in Marvel Team Up number 14, I think.
Yep. Yeah. He 15 in November. Okay. That was his first appearance.
Okay.
First appearance was November 1973 in Marvel Team Up number 15.
Well, I was close.
He has been seen fighting against. He fight alongside Blackout, Death Ninja, and Doghead. And he was killed by the Caretaker, according to Blackout, although we don't get to see it actually happen. He pops up periodically to fight against the Ghost Rider. Then we had a second Orb take over. The second Orb doesn't actually talk at all, pretty much, from what I'm gathering. He doesn't seem to, it's like a very rare occurrence. And he actually is a giant eyeball on his head with a ray gun. Although, it even states it in here, he has never successfully hit anybody with it.
Really?
Wait, maybe it's the first Orb that's coming back that holds the eye.
Maybe, or it's the second Orb who's actually an eyeball. Outside of his initial return as a second guy, he's been seen in the background of most issues. He's a background character who doesn't even get a name half the time. He's just the eyeball guy in the background. And then he appears in the Astonishing Spider-Man Wolverine miniseries, robbing a bank. He seems to be robbing diamonds, but he eventually seems to gain the understanding of time travel because he was but he was stopped by Minutemen. Minuteman? I thought Minuteman was one guy.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with Minuteman.
Yeah. But before he could use his time travel knowledge and abilities. He knows how to time travel, he can't use it, basically. The new Orb, the one who doesn't talk, and is actually a big squishy eyeball. He then fights against the Hulk and Red She-Hulk, because that probably ended up well for him. And we discover that he can see into people's eyes and see their entire history. So he knows who Red Hulk and Red She-Hulk are due to that.
Maybe that is tied into the whole original Sin event.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Makes sense.
And then according to this, the Orb's latest appearance is Marvel's 2014 event, Original Sin issue number 2, where he is shown having one of the Watcher's eyes.
God,
So
who has the other eye?
That Orb seems like he could be the guy.
Yeah.
If he can look into people's eyes and see their whole history.
If he's continually getting more powerful like that, gaining powers like time travel and, seeing into people.
His publication history, though, is only 17 issues total. It spans over Marvel Team Up. He's in quite a few issues of Ghost Rider. He pops up in the Incredible Hulk. He's in Solo Avengers 19 and 20 and Avengers Spotlight. He's in some book called Deadline. Never even heard of that one. And he pops up in the Astonishing Spider-Man Wolverine series 1 through 6.
Huh.
So he's primarily a Ghost Rider villain, and he also fights against Spider-Man and Hulk.
I need to look up his history.
There's got to be more to it than this, but he's so obscure that there's so little on him, you know?
Man, if those guys don't stop mowing grass out there, man. My God.
Go put on your eyeball helmet and go
man. I need to get a house, man. I hate living in an apartment complex. All right, yeah, I need to look up the history of the Orb. I guarantee my subscribers are going to scream at me to do a video about him sometime.
I'm thinking I'm going to have to do the same thing. I don't.
Yeah, if
I can't find anything else on him. Like, this is it. This is all I was able to drudge up the first time. Like, the second Orb. Let's see if we can get more information on him.
Yeah, definitely. I don't like using websites like Comic Vine, but I guess I have to.
I'm in the same way. I like reading most of the time and reading the story, and then what I do is I go to the wikis to verify a lot of my facts, because we always miss stuff.
Yeah.
But I like reading through it all myself, but I don't. It's the Orb. They updated his Marvel Wikipedia to the original Sin thing. Here it is. He was born with the head in the form of a giant eyeball. Due to this deformity, he was abandoned at an early age and raised in a freak show. Sometime later, he became a mercenary and served the angel Zadcriel, along with Death Ninja, Doghead, and Blackout. During an attack on the caretaker, the former advisor to Ketch, the Orb accidentally damaged his own eye. How would you damage your own eye? You have one giant eye.
You had one job to do.
When he triggered a trap inside of the caretaker's home, launching a wooden plank into himself. The Orb was then taken to the prison hospital where he survived and had treatment due to his trauma. He then escaped from prison thanks to Deacon and Blackout, who wanted him to serve Zadcriel's task force of Ghost Rider foes. Along with them in the new Vengeance, alongside Vengeance, he attacked the gateway to heaven and faced the Gun Nuns. Okay, I gotta read that comic. And was knocked out by Daniel Ketch's Ghost Rider. So he has been a Ghost Rider villain.
Well,
the Orb later returned to a life. What?
This is still gonna be a stretch.
I know.
No, I mean, it's not going to be a stretch at all. Like, they're in the current events in the 8th issue of the new Incredible Hulk series, he robbed a bank and took the eyes of the workers, and then when he left, you saw Betty Ross and the Hulk fighting and said he would take their eyes as trophies.
Yeah, and that's where you can read into them. You can see their history, and he finds out that she's just trying to get her approval. And So, wow. I mean, we're learning about these characters as we're doing it, but we're trying to give you more in-depth onto these individual characters. In my opinion, he's still a crappy supervillain.
Yeah, that guy sucks. I mean, there's much better supervillains to pick than him. I don't know. I'm not really sure how this is going to turn out, but regardless, I mean, it looks like it might be kind of interesting. I guess we'll have to wait and see how the original Sin story progresses. But
he looks fine over here in the original Sin, but then if you look at him in his original appearances, he looks like a retard.
Yeah, he looks stupid.
He looks like the Ben Stein commercial guy. He really does. Like, dry eyes, use benzene.
Wouldn't that be just a huge weakness? Like
a giant eyeball on your head.
Just knowing how it feels when you poke your eye or get something
and I agree.
in your eye.
He hit himself with a plank in the head.
just like throw a rock at his eye and it'll hurt a lot because it's an eye. But, I don't know.
What kind of a deformity is that? Because it's listed as he was born with this deformity.
Wow.
Is this? I'm gonna look at. Is there a medical condition where you giant eyeball head?
Let me tell you something, man. You're going to find something like that in the Philippines or something. See some weird stuff out there.
There's a giant eyeball thing called the giant cell okay, wait. But even in this picture, it is not one giant eyeball. It's not.
I don't understand how that works, but in any event, well, we need to wrap this podcast up, guys.
Yep.
We've been going on for about an hour and a half or so with a couple interruptions here and there, but not too bad. Not too bad for our first podcast, I don't think.
We're just going to blame Rob. It's always going to be Rob's fault, David. Don't worry.
Might as well. It's all good.
He brought us together, so everything can go back to him.
Everything can go back to me. It's all good. I don't mind. But, yeah, guys, so make sure you check out our channels. I mean, you got Comic Storian, Benny's channel. It's a sub-channel of Eligible Monster. And, of course, there'll always be a link to his video, to his channel at the end of one of my videos. And, of course, make sure you check out my channel, Marvel Explained.
Yep, and highlights of this will be on my channel. So if you're watching this over on my channel, the links to everything Rob does will also be in the descriptions of my videos from this point on, now that I caught on that he's been doing that for a couple days for me.
It's all good. All right, guys. Well, yeah, I guess we'll call it a wrap.
And we will link you to David's channel, too.
Yeah, once he makes one. Once he makes one.
Some of my video editing.
Do you have a Twitter?
I do not. Well, I kind of do, but I don't post to it. I gotta start.
Yeah, man.
We'll link to his non-existent Twitter.
All right, guys. We'll catch you guys later.